Good afternoon. I show 2 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. I know we have a really full agenda today of some great presentations with a lot of helpful information for us to make some decisions. Our first item of business, number 2, is to approve the minutes from the May 30th, 2023 special meeting. And this will be a verbal vote today. I would entertain a motion.
I second.
Thank you. Got it? Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Are there any nays? I'm aye as well. Motion passes. All right, item number 3 on our agenda today, we have a couple of presentations from proposers. We recently went out for solicitation for investment services. We received quite a few responses. The selection committee met a couple of weeks ago. We reviewed those responses in detail, and we decided to have the top 3 vendors come and give a presentation for the board today. So we'll go ahead and get started with Asset Consulting Group, ACG.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Some familiar faces here, but I'll introduce myself regardless. My name is Jason Poulos. I'm a managing director with Asset Consulting Group. With me today is Kevin Moore, vice president with the firm. Both of us work with a number of our Oklahoma clients, not just, we work with the city's defined benefit plan as well as several other plans here in the state of Oklahoma. And we're very pleased to be here today. We know there's a limited amount of time. I'm going to try to cover all of the items that you've asked us to, beginning with some background on the firm. I'm going to start with just some background on how we all got here today. It was 2018 or 19 when the city manager, Craig Freeman, when he became city manager, he had some concerns about the deferred comp DC plan and asked us to do a review. We were engaged by the administrator to do basically a 2-part review, 2 stages. The first stage was to review the governance process and the record keeper, or the 2 record keepers. And then the second stage was to review the options in the plan and make some recommendations there. We went through really the first 1.5 stages, if you will. And the first thing we said was, you need a governance structure. Congratulations, you're the governance structure. That's how we all got here today. Then COVID happened and things kind of went, the world changed and things were difficult to get done. But we made some other recommendations to the retirement plan committee, which we'll go through today. But I think that also gives us some insight into how this process would go. So with that, I'm just going to back up now and talk a little bit about our firm. For those of you that may not be as familiar with us, if you wouldn't mind turning to slide 2 there, Regina, for me. Asset Consulting Group is an institutional investment consulting firm. That's all we do is advise institutional investors, pension plans, insurance companies, endowment foundations, and high net worth family offices. We don't manage money. We're not a broker-dealer. We don't have any products. We don't get compensated from recommendations we make. We don't charge managers to be in our database. 100% of our revenue comes from retainer fees paid by our clients like you, and generally we charge on a hard dollar basis, annual basis. We were formed in 1989. However, really the origins of our firm go back to the mid-70s when our founding principals that ultimately started ACG started a pension consulting practice within Merrill Lynch in the mid-70s with the advent of ERISA. As time went on, it became apparent that being within the big wirehouse firms or brokerage firms or asset managers was a conflict, and really trying to sit on the same side as the investors and the clients, you saw the evolution of independent consulting firms like Asset Consulting Group in the late 80s. And so we've been in the same form since 1989. We're based in St. Louis, Missouri. 100% of our people are there. We travel all over. Both Kevin and I, like I said, we're in Oklahoma City regularly. I think I've been in Oklahoma City 5 to 6 days a month, every month for the last 24 years. So it's second home, and we love it here. We advise institutional investors. We have about 158 client relationships. That's really portfolios. If we broke that down into number of distinct entities, it's closer to 100, and that represents about $175 billion in assets, so it's a pretty significant asset base. Why that number of clients matters, I think this is one of the things you asked about, was consultant to client ratio. We really believe that the right number for any one of us to work with is 8 to 12 clients. So we're not working with 20, 30, or 100 clients. We're working with 8 to 12 clients. And the reason for that is every client is different, deserve a customized approach, and we really try to deliver that. 47 employees, again, all located in St. Louis, Missouri, over half of which are CFA charter holders. Won't necessarily get into that, but the designation is Chartered Financial Analyst. We're not just relationship folks, we're analysts at heart. So we're meeting with managers, the people are meeting with you, we're meeting with investment managers, doing due diligence. And in addition to that, we have our dedicated research team as well. The stability of our team, you'll see on the next slide, the three things that we think really distinguish us is our size, stability, and depth. I talked about our size. We have enough, $175 billion in assets that gives us scale of larger firms to be able to negotiate fees and get access to a number of strategies that others may not be able to. But we're small enough to be nimble and provide a customized approach and not be a cookie cutter approach to every different client. The stability of our team, I think, is evident. For those of you that know us and have worked with us in the past, I've been working with the city of Oklahoma City for 22 years now, and a couple of other clients here in town. And really, it's the same folks. Kevin's been with ACG for 10 years. We think the stability of our team shines through in the stability of our client base. We don't lose clients very often. We work with clients, and we have a number of clients that we've worked with that actually predate myself and a couple other of the managing directors that go back to the beginning of the firm, 30 years, and we think that's a testament to what we're doing. And then the depth of the team, 47 people, as I said, over half of which are CFA charter holders. You really get, when you work with ACG, you get all of us. And I know you asked who the primary points of contact would be. It would be Kevin and I. We would be your call for anything. In addition to us, Patty Karolzak, who some of you know, she's a portfolio analyst. She would be on this team as well. But the buck would stop with us, but you're going to get the depth of resources. If we're looking at evaluating large cap managers within the mutual fund offerings on on your record keeper, we're going to bring in the large cap analyst to talk about that. If we're looking at international, we're going to have our international analysts participate in that. The next slide, oftentimes when you're talking to consultants, you're going to hear a lot of the three firms today say a lot of the same things. I'm pretty certain of that. We all been around for a while, we all have smart people, and we all provide these services. The best measure, we believe, for firms like us that we don't have a track record, we're not managing money, is what our clients say. Greenwich Associates is a national consulting firm. They do a survey every year of institutional investors, money managers, and consultants as well. The institutional investment survey is of plan sponsors that have in excess of $100 million in assets. And they ask them a series of questions that really touches on everything that we do as a consultant for our client. And you'll see the list of criteria that they're evaluating on. The understanding of your goals and objectives, how we communicate with you, proactive advice, trustworthy brand, usefulness of meetings, responsiveness to requests, usefulness of reports, written reports. That's one of the things you're going to be wanting to see is written reports on your two different plans. What does that look like? We're pleased to say that over the last 5 years, we have been awarded the Greenwich Quality Leader Award. In each of the last 5 years, only 3 mid-sized firms and 3 large firms received that award. So it's at least a testament as to what our clients are saying about us and how they feel. Just moving on a bit about our firm, pension clients, retirement funds make up, it's really the foundation of our business. We have 44 pension and retirement clients. It's about a third of our business, 28% today. That is broken down between DB and DC plans. The bulk of that is with public plans, government plans like yourselves. And frequently we're working with the DB plan and they have an associated 401A, 457, or participant-directed drop program that we're working with as well. So with that, because I've used about 9 minutes of our time, I'm going to hand it off to Kevin to talk about what it is we would do and what we've done for you already.
Thank you, Jason. And Regina, if we could please go to slide 8. So as Jason mentioned, we were engaged back in 2019 to go through a two-phase, two-stage project, and we got through about 1.5 of those. So page 8 really highlights the things that we did over the course of 2018 and 2019, just to level set and let you all know the path that we were generally going down. So Jason mentioned the creation of a governing body. That's obviously done as we can see today. On top of that, we had put together a draft investment policy statement that we think should be adopted by the governing body to really highlight all of the different parties and all the different pieces that are involved in a participant-directed plan. So this was what we had done back in 2019. We just never got anything quite adopted at that point in time. On top of that, we did a really comprehensive review of the 2 record keepers that you had, Nationwide and Mission Square, which was formerly ICMA. As part of the review process, we went out and did a blind RFI to not just those 2 record keepers, but also to 3 others to get pricing proposals back to go to each of your current record keepers and ultimately say, hey, with all of these other prices that have come in, we think this is an opportunity to where we could push on fees and really bring those down for the overarching 401A and 457 plans. So we went through that RFI process and we were in the midst of talking through which record keeper would ultimately be selected when everything was put on pause. But really the punchline continues to be, from our standpoint, we believe that consolidating all of the participant assets into one record keeper, consolidating the 401A and 457 plans to one plan each, and then consolidating the lineup and reviewing fees across all of that can really translate into savings for participants in the millions of dollars. So when we look to page 9, just to show you a little bit more detail on some of the work that we did on the record keeping front, we have a lot of numbers in these grids, but we got a formal proposal back from ICMA or Mission Square, and then 2 proposals back from Nationwide back in 2019. What you were paying at that time with the dual record keeper approach was that $970,000 that you see in the far right column in the middle of the page. If you were simply to consolidate all of the participant assets to either of those record keepers, down below there, you see Mission Square, you can get $195,000 by utilizing only them and getting rid of all the revenue sharing arrangements in place between manager and record keeper. So that's a really meaningful savings that can be experienced at that level. Similarly, with Nationwide, because there was a legacy 3.5% fixed rate for that guaranteed portion of the plan lineup, we got 2 proposals from them. And ultimately, what we were trying to accomplish was for those participants that were going to continue to have that 3.5% rate, that they wouldn't be getting an unfair advantage relative to participants that couldn't access that particular product since it had been discontinued. So we got a couple different splits from Nationwide as it relates to what participants would pay that would have that 3.5 versus the other participants that would not have it. And either way, you see down at the bottom there, the first tiered fee proposal came in right at $287,000, and the second one came in right at $340,000. So whichever scenario you went with, very significant fee savings from the $970 that was being paid with the dual record keeper setup.
And that situation's probably changed today, one of which is the 3.5% guarantee may not be as critical today as it was then when rates were at less than 1%. But nonetheless, all of this would require renegotiating with them and others, but this is just, I think this is the direction we would still be able to go.
And to Jason's point, we would want to re-engage all the record keepers, go back out to bid, go through that same process, get those pricing proposals back, because as we've seen across the industry, even since 2019, there continues to be downward compression on fees. So we think there's even a potential to get even lower amounts today than what we saw even back then. Page 10 just highlights all the equity options that you have across both record keepers today. This is across U.S., non-U.S., global options, growth, core, value. And what you see here is 57 total options across both Nationwide and Mission Square. We think that should be significantly reduced. And similarly, on the next page, where you have fixed income, real assets, and then more balanced asset allocation funds, you see 15 fixed income funds, 3 real asset funds, and more balanced funds have 12 total options. So by moving to a single record keeper approach on the next page, here is the ideal map as we see it from a participant-directed plan. Going from 57 options across equity strategies down to 10, that covers U.S., non-U.S., global, core, value, growth. On the fixed income side, we think 3 options is the appropriate number, a short-term or a fixed option, a core fixed income option, and a more opportunistic option, 1 diversified real assets option, and then 1 balanced fund and 1 target date fund suite.
If I can just interrupt, Kevin.
Yeah.
I think the importance is like, why? Okay, we have all these options, isn't that a good thing? The whole reason this started was thinking about fiduciary responsibility and oversight. So this is not unusual. We see this in other municipalities where there are multiple record keepers, and there really isn't a governance structure in place to oversee that from a fiduciary standpoint, so it just mushrooms and continues to grow. But the most important step is you as a board, creating that oversight structure and governance structure, and then thinking, okay, well, what are we offering our participants? Having 2 plans, 2 401A, 2 457, there's confusion there already. Which plan do I pick? So as fiduciaries, you need to narrow it down and evaluate whether it's one of the 2 you currently have or someone else, what is the best option from a fee standpoint, from a service standpoint, and from what underlying options they can provide. And then streamlining the choices, we think, is very critical. Most folks using a defined contribution plan or a participant-directed plan, they're not experts on the funds, and what you as fiduciaries have oversight responsibility of picking, having a diversified set of options for your participants at at the most reasonable cost. And that's really what we want to drill down on in this next stage is cost.
Exactly, and just to touch on a couple last items, I know we're pushing up on time here. From a transition timeline standpoint, I know that was one of the things Regina asked us to touch on. We would put together a formal RFP for the record keepers. We'd have an initial meeting, go through what that looks like, send that out. They'd have a couple months to get back to us. We'd evaluate all the responses, come back to the board with a summary of that analysis, make a recommendation on what to do going forward from a record keeper standpoint. And then once that decision is made, we would work concurrently with that transition to streamline the number of options that are available for participants and how assets would be mapped over the next, say, 3 to 6 months.
And so that really ties to our fee proposal. So we proposed a staged-in fee where the first year would be $60,000, the second year, $45,000, and then thereafter, our fee would drop to $30,000. So really, where we're viewing this, a part of the project that we didn't get to is still in these numbers, essentially, which is, but now we're adding on, kind of going back, taking a step back and saying, let's really open up the record keeper evaluation. And we have to do it again anyway because it happened 4 years ago. The first probably 14 months is going to be the work that goes into this, picking a new record keeper or picking a individual record keeper, narrowing down the fund options, and then one of the most important steps is going to be assisting staff and the board in the participant communication, because that's where there's going to be questions. Once that's all done, then we think there's not a lot of moving parts going on. It's just oversight, regular meetings, whether it be quarterly or however frequently you want to do that, and we're proposing $30,000. We also propose a 10% reduction to that if we could do it on days that we might otherwise be here, just to combine with other meetings. So with that, we would really like to finish what we started and continue working with you all. Any questions on our firm or what we've proposed?
Thank you for the presentation and the additional information. I did have one question. In the proposal, the initial contract period was not addressed in terms of a fee structure. So as you just explained, year one you had 60, year two was 45, then 30,000 a year, and so on and so forth. But we needed a little bit of clarification on the initial contract period, which wouldn't be a full year.
Okay. We were just, I think we were reading this as year one.
Okay.
From the date we start, the first 12 months, we would just have a contract that is for a 12-month period.
Okay.
It doesn't have to line up to a calendar year. So if we started on October 1, that contract would be from October 1 to October 1, 60,000. The next year from October 1 to the next September 30th, it would be 45,
Okay.
and then thereafter, 30,000.
Okay. Very good. We just wanted to make sure that
Yeah.
we were on the same page
Okay.
and with our understanding. So thank you for that
Thank you.
clarification. Were there any other questions for the Asset Consulting Group? No?
Okay. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you,
I wish I
Jason.
had time
Thank
to
you,
tell
Kevin.
the story about Ralph taking my partner and I up in a helicopter. Because I still make fun of George all the time because I didn't know how terrified of heights he was. If you recall, he was gripping that.
Is this my clicker? Oh, you're gonna run it? Would you drive? That's, unless you guys want to drive. Regina, should I start?
All right, yes, thank you so
Oh.
much for joining us today. And so our second presenter today is ANCO Consulting Group. And so just take it away. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, well, thank you. We are very excited to be here. My name is Steve Gordon. I'm a partner at ANCO. I started our defined contribution practice, I had that honor, and I still run it today. So it's my great pleasure to be here. You would be one of my two accounts. I have one other account, and that account is right up the street, Quick Trip, up out of Tulsa. And we may mention a few case studies as we go. But I'm not gonna lie, we are fired up to be here. We've been thinking about you guys for over a year. So we're excited to be here, and we're excited because this is what we do. This is how we started the firm. You know, DC practice runs in our blood for public sectors. We started the firm to serve public plans, to serve public DC plans. And I will, if you could flip to page 4, please. We're your team. This is the team you'll see. To my left here is your primary consultant, straight out of Tulsa. And that's Doug Anderson, been doing this for 32 years. He is a certified plan fiduciary advisor. That again is a DC designation. Been doing this 32 years right up the street in Tulsa. With me to my right is Tony Kay, only 17 years. Again, industry leading experience there. He's out of our Dallas office. Both Tony and Doug are here monthly. and you'll hear about a lot of the clients that they work with here in Tulsa, or in Oklahoma City, but they're here on a monthly basis and available all the time. You'll see for our fee, we don't just stick to quarterly meetings. There's a lot of work that gets done in between meetings, working with staff, and that's the expectation. We don't charge extra for that. We always want to be your first call. And that's going to be important because there's probably a lot that's going to be going on. And again, there's my mug down at the bottom right. I've been doing this 33 years, and as I said, run the practice. I'm here less frequently. I'm already here on a quarterly basis, but would love to come more often. So we're the face of your team. You see David Goff there is the guy that does all the work behind the scenes. But if you could turn 2 pages forward, I know you guys are now familiar with the Greenwich survey. I saw that was from your package out there. But everything we talk about starts and ends with participants, right? That's what we're in this room to do, right? Improve participant outcomes. And that kind of comes in 2 broad categories. The first job, as we see it, is to protect you as a fiduciary by helping you make great decisions, right? There's a lot of pitfalls along the way, and we got to help. Our job is we've seen it all. You got 90 years of experience here. We're going to help you avoid those pitfalls, help you make great decisions as fiduciaries, and most importantly, document those decisions, right? So we're big proponents of education, which you'll hear here in a second, but so that's kind of the first phase of it. And by protecting you as a fiduciary, we're improving outcomes of the participants, right? We're making great decisions, and that's what this is all about. The second piece of that is providing your participants with the retirement that they deserve, right? We need to optimize their outcomes, optimize their monthly benefit. That's what we're all doing this for, right? That's what this work is here for. And it kind of comes in, and the team behind me is about to walk you through this, but streamlining the menu and plan design, right? Getting that right. I know you've kind of heard a little bit about that. Develop an education strategy that engages your participants and measure that. You're going to hear about that. Engaging your participants, and then measuring success. A lot of accountability, a lot of transparency. Sitting in your seat, you're going to want to see a lot of transparency. What are the results, right? And so how do we know, or how do we do it, these things? We always like to start with this chart because, as you heard probably earlier, Greenwich Quality Index is an interview of your clients, and we gave them all of our clients. So unlike many of our peers in the industry, we gave them a list of all of our clients. We had the highest number of responses, which they said is like Yelp. That's usually bad, right? That's usually people getting upset at you. But despite that, we've won it. We've been in the running 2 years, and we've won it both years, won the award both years. But one of the things that we're proudest of, and that's most important today, is when it comes about what I just described, we rank #1 in the industry in defined contribution. We got a 100% from our clients in that category. The only firm that got that. So if you ask our clients, to us, that's the most important factor. The next page, I kind of mentioned you're our sweet spot, and that's why we're so excited. We have 47 plans that we work with that are your size. 70% of our business roughly is public plans. That's why we started the company. We do a lot of corporate plans. You mentioned, you see Quick Trip, and I think that helps inform us because I don't think you want to be just the best public plan. I think you want to be the best plan available, right? And so we're going to take this in phases, do it at your speed. You're going to hear a little bit about that. You see a lot of our clients on the right-hand side there, Prince George's County. They're very similar to you in size. We just did an RFP for them, came back at 3.7 basis points for administration and education. You're probably going to fall somewhere in there. We're going to, again, we'll be talking about that. St. Francis. Doug's going through an RFP there. I'll let him talk about that. But the clients you see on the right-hand side, we have 8 DC plans that are your size or larger. So again, you are our sweet spot. We're good at this. We've done it many, many times. We average, you can see our stats on record-keeping RFPs. We do about 1.5 a month. We average about 18 a year. We know, obviously, all of the record keepers. We work with all the record keepers. You can see our due diligence site visits coming up. We do 1 a year on-site deep due diligence. That's and again, just because we work so much in the public sector, your 2 providers were like one of the top advisors for nationwide. We are the #1 advisor for Mission Square, just based on number of accounts. And again, that's just because we exist in this space, not because we're tied to any record keeper. We work with 20 record keepers. But again, we're the vice president of the industry committee on NAGDA, if you've heard of that, National Association of Government DC Administrators. It's really the only conference, if you will, the only association that's out there for public DC plans. We're on the industry committee. We're vice president, and we're on the executive board. We're all about education, right? And that's going to be a key component as kind of you get this process up and running. We think just education helping you truly understand the decisions that you're making. And then I'll end my comments on the next page. We're backed by some very important resources. If you look at the research team behind us helping us pick the best available funds, we have one full-time research analyst for every 2 consultants. We have one full-time performance analyst for every 2 consultants. Unbelievable investment, but it's important, right? We're making decisions that will affect a lot of participants and that are going to have actual results that you're going to be able to quantify. You're responsible for a very large plan. It's a very large plan, almost $500 million. That's not lost on us. It's a lot of responsibility. And you're going to see a compelling reason after all this analysis that we're about to talk about to potentially consolidate, go to open architecture, make changes. That's going to be a lot of work. No one's done that more than us. This is what we do. No one has more experience than the assigned team that you're looking at right now, and we're going to be there every step of the way. And again, this is our job. This is what we do. You're in good hands, and that's what we're here for. So I'll step back and let these guys take you through some more details.
Good. Good afternoon, everyone. It's good to be here. If we could roll a few slides forward. This is the one right here. Steve told you a lot about the firm. We have a very specific way of doing things for our clients, especially in the governmental sector, because we know that transparency and documentation is incredibly important. We do this both in the corporate world and in the governmental world, and this is how we keep the trains running. You have a plan right now that is of a structure that you may not like going forward. We have to know that. We have to talk to you, figure out what you like about both of the plan providers that are out there right now, find strengths, weaknesses, and develop a best-in-class workplace retirement plan that helps your participants and then also helps with retention. We all know that it's really hard to get employees right now, and it's really hard to keep employees sometimes. And so this is one of the areas where we have worked with a variety of organizations to say, this is our budget. We want to keep as many people as possible because it's really expensive and disruptive to replace them. How can you help us do that with workplace retirement programs? And that's really where we start this process. So again, this is how we keep the trains running on time. If we were to hire, we're very good at starting up new portfolios or new plans. It's a reconsideration of what this is for and what it can be and how the best way to get there. This is our introduction in data collection. It's pretty simple. It's pretty quick. It's very painless for you guys. We would be able to come back to you. Would you go to the next slide, please? For the very first meeting, and this is something that we want to lay out. We want to lay out the first year's timelines, meetings, and goals very early on to keep us all accountable and keep us moving forward. So meeting number 1, what are we going to talk about? Most likely it's going to be about governance and fiduciary oversight. As a fiduciary, and we're fiduciaries right alongside with you, there are certain things that you have to do to make sure that you are doing the proper duty that you owe to the plan. Very, very simple. You must do what is the best for the plan participants and their beneficiaries. Beyond that, that's not fulfilling your fiduciary duty. So we want to make sure that everything that we are doing is for the benefit of the plan participants. Now that's really easy for us to do. We're an independent firm. We have no other revenue sources other than our clients who pay us hard dollar fees, so there's no conflict of interest whatsoever. We like to think that we're on the same side of the table as you, advising you, just not voting, and how to put together a plan like this. So again, your plan is a 457B. There might be other plans out there within your retention program that would be considered on this, but knowing the ins and outs of those plans, how they're built, how different organizations monitor, manage, and administrate them is something that we've been around. It's not our first rodeo. It's not our second rodeo. We've done this for a lot of folks to really optimize their plans. And again, what do we look at? First thing that we want to pay attention to, we want to make sure we know where every single penny of cost in the plan is, right? The best way that we can help your participants have more money at retirement is not by investment returns, although that's incredibly important. That's something that will come up later, but it's minimizing the out-of-pocket costs to your participants and to the city, because that allows your folks to save more and more of their money and compound it over time. If we could go to the next slide here. This is something we have on all of our defined contribution client reports. It's a form of this, and it goes in every single report that we go out. It's not an option. I can't say I want to take this out for one of my clients. This is a required slide in all of our quarterly performance reports or our monthly update reports if we're meeting monthly. What this shows is what we need to be doing every single quarter, right? Follow procedures, including documentations of all meetings and decisions. As a fiduciary, outcome is not the most important thing. Process, procedure, and documentation is the most important thing. We write minutes for most of our clients to make sure that that's done. Next one, review plan investments in compliance with investment policy statement. Investment policy statement is critical. The only worst thing than not having a policy statement is having one and not following it. And that's the way to get into significant legal trouble. And believe me, workplace retirement programs are targets of lawsuits out there all the time. And so one of our duties is to help make sure that you are following your investment policy statement, documenting everything, protecting yourselves and protecting the plan and the participants all at the same time. You'll see fiduciary education, very, very important. If you're new to this world, there's a lot to learn. It's kind of a big topic to talk about. We can make it very simple, but there are a lot of things. And as far as fiduciary education goes, I'm sure you heard about the Secure 2.0 Act if you live in this world. It was published December 30th, a couple of years ago, and they're already saying that we're having to push the features of that out 2 years from the initial due date. It was so complicated. So it's a complicated area. We're very good at it. We know our way around, and we really know how to help folks like you help your participants in this world. So with that, I'm going to yield the rest to Mr. K here.
Thank you, Doug. And I've worked with Doug my entire career, so I'm used to my 4 or 5 minutes getting cut to 2 minutes. So I'm going to go with page 15, please. We'll skip ahead a little bit here and talk about the vendor review process or the potential RFP. Yes, we are here advocating for an RFP. At the end of the day, we think that that's the best way to get good cost from the eventual vendor if you were to consolidate, or if for some reason you wanted to keep two, we would have that discussion. But an RFP is really the way that you would drive down cost and get a full picture of the landscape. Steve mentioned some of the numbers of RFPs that we've done and that we do. I'm in the midst of 2 right now for 2 clients of similar size as your plans. One of those is record kept with Mission Square, so we're very familiar with kind of where that stands and expectations there. We've also recently renegotiated on a client's behalf a contract with Nationwide, who we understand is your other vendor. A little bit of a different scenario, full RFP not required because the plan sponsor pays for the record-keeping expenses, but nonetheless, very versed in that. And I think the key is that we're here to assist along the way. Maybe the last bullet point there, make the most efficient use of the decision committee's time. We work with a variety of different plans, lots of governmental plans. We understand this is not your day job. We're willing to walk through every single question in the RFP and educate around that. Doug mentioned the first meeting, that would be part of that process. But we're also willing to take the reins and take over and run that entire process and really do the heavy lifting for you all. Again, very transparent. We work with, Steve mentioned, our clients work with 20 different record-keeping vendors, so we know this space very well. Next slide, please. Actually, let's go, in the interest of time, maybe to page 18, please. If there were to be some type of transition, either consolidation or maybe a new record keeper altogether, obviously there's a process associated with that. We've been through lots of these transitions before. We're there side by side with clients. It is a daunting task, but again, we've been through it before. We've been through it with Nationwide and Mission Square, and again, 20 different record keeper vendors. So we have a step-by-step process to make this as seamless as possible, educate employees, and really drive home what it's all about, right? Cost savings and a better offering for your participants. Next slide. Just in closing, Doug mentioned investments, not the end all be all, but they are important. This is going to look pretty similar, I think, to all three presentations that you see from the consultants today, but streamline this, and I think the back end of this is important, right? We have the research team. Steve talked about the analysts that we have that are dedicated to these asset classes. That's all they do. They spend 100% of their working hours researching target date funds or researching large cap funds, but it's all about simplifying, reducing the fees, which having done some analysis, and there's some examples in the back of this book, which we don't have time to go through, but there are a variety of ways to drive down fees and, again, improve the outcome for participants. So with that.
And we are omitting going over a lot of the analysis. I can tell you when we saw who your providers were, we knew what lineups you had, we knew what the fees would be. I mean, you're going to save potentially $1 million a year every year participants. But I do want to end, I think it's, if we can go to page 22, I'll just end where I started, which, I mentioned this is all about your participants. And, so a lot of this is going on in the background. We're going to do all the heavy lifting. There's a lot of work that we've been talking about, but I don't want to leave without talking about, all this again is for the participants, and it's kind of 4 big phases to this. The first is streamline the plan, right? We just talked about that. Get the menu streamlined, best in class, low cost. You take 1% of fee out, a firefighter could retire 10 years earlier with the exact same balance, right? It's very important. So get the plan streamlined, get it easy to use. No more, Cheesecake Factory menu. We're gonna have a very simple menu, help your participants make good decisions, right? Then the second piece of that is take a snapshot. Take a picture of the plan, where it is, right? And that is for accountability, right? So let's see where the participants are, where the balances are, who's diversified, who maybe is 60 years old and maybe taking on too much risk, who's 20 years old, maybe stuck in that fixed account at 3.5% because they think that's the right place to be. Guess what? Not keeping up with inflation. So we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to develop a plan and engage the participants, right? And there are tons of different tools. This is the snapshot tool. I think the next page or the previous page had different tools that are used to engage your participants, engage them, have accountability across the board as to who's responsible for what. Then you take another snapshot and show what difference was made, right? Are participants deferring more? And at the end of the day, what percentage of your participants have a replacement value of income that is acceptable to us? And we're going to determine, what's that number for you, right? We're probably not going to be able to get to the level of like a Quick Trip. I think their average participant has 120% of their monthly balance available because of all that Quick Trip stock doing so well, right? We got to think about that a little differently. Let's target 70% of what your current employees are making for replacement income, and let's see if we're on track and see what we need to do to settle that. So, and I'll just end on the last page are fees, and I forget what page it is. 32. We did read the package before. Our fee, 2 things you need to know. The first thing is for every single client, we guarantee our fee, and what I mean by that is you're making a decision to hire a participant for the first time ever today. And we want to put the pressure on us the first year to deliver. And this is the offer we've made to every client. If at any time during the first year, you just like, Steve, this isn't what we thought we were getting, you let us know. We'll pay back 100% of your fees. We'll help you transition to the next group, and it's a real offer. In 20 years, we've actually done that once. And the key is we want to put the pressure on us and show you that we believe in accountability. We're going to kill it for you. So I'm not worried about it.
That wasn't one of our clients, by the way.
It was
No
one at this table. It was a client in South Florida. So it is a real offer. We have very flexible reporting. Our consultant didn't change reporting. They didn't listen, and they got terminated. We didn't complain. The other thing is, we did look at the packet before we came in, the board packet. We think $50,000 is a very fair fee, but I think I started by saying how fired up we are. Don't let that get in the way. We'll match a fee if we have to. It's, I think 42.5 or whatever is the other one I saw. We're happy to match. We just don't let that get in the way of us starting off a great relationship. We know that we're going to come in and do a great job for you. So, but this is our fee that we put forward. We think it's very fair, but we're, if that's going to get in the way, we'll match. So in your green room discussions, just know I'll have that authority and we'll match. Any questions?
Steve, Doug, and Tony, we really appreciate the presentation today and all the information that you've been able to share with the board. Are there any questions? All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'd be really honored to work with you guys. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, that sounds great. Okay, thank you.
All right, good afternoon. The board
afternoon.
would like to welcome Innovest here this afternoon for our third and final presentation today. So take it away.
Okay,
Thank you.
great, thank you. I'm going to start us off with a little story. Let's see here. It looks like it might be stuck.
Oh, mouse is not moving.
There, wait. Did it? Oh, there. Oh, gosh. Okay, right. I'll see if that goes. Thank you so much. I wanted to start with a little story. We work with about $100 million plan in Nevada. It's about $100 million. They had Nationwide and Mission Square as their record keeper. We helped them. They hadn't worked with a consultant before. They hadn't done an RFP for a record keeper before. So we were hired to help them through that process. We helped them do an RFP, consolidate record keepers. We helped them develop a best-in-class investment menu, develop an investment policy statement. And as a result, their participants are saving about 67% of the fees, and that represents about $600,000. So the reason I'm telling you this is every plan that we work with is different, but there's some similarities that I hope that you can see between your plan and this plan that we worked with in Nevada. And in fact, we've probably worked with 40 plans that are similar in helping them consolidate and bring best-of-class investments and improve retirement readiness for participants. So we're so excited to present today. My name is Wendy Dominguez. I'm the president and co-founder of Innovest Portfolio Solutions. My husband is career law enforcement, and my son is following in his footsteps, so we have focused on public plans because of that influence from the very beginning. I'd like to introduce my colleagues with me today.
Great, good afternoon, good to be here. My name is Gordon Toole. I'm a partner with Innovest and have spent about 25 years in the retirement industry. Many of those actually were on your side of the table. I spent many years as the plan administrator, plan manager for the retirement plans for a municipality in Colorado before moving to Innovest about 16 years ago.
Good afternoon, everyone. Brett Minnick, one of the vice presidents and consultants at Innovest. Along with my consulting responsibilities, I also manage our investment research team, so the team responsible for selecting and monitoring investments within all of our portfolios.
Good afternoon. My name's Paul Nicario. I'm a partner at the firm. If we're fortunate enough to be able to work with you, I'll serve as a relationship manager for you.
So we are going to stick to your agenda. You had given us 6 or 5 items that you wanted us to focus on, so our agenda will be your agenda. And we're going to start a little bit with our history. So as I mentioned, we started the firm 27 years ago in 1996. One of our very first clients back then was a public plan, and we've grown that business plan by plan over the last 27 years. We work with about 140 public defined contribution plans. A couple of other highlights that I just wanted to talk about. 2004, we were hired as an expert witness in one of the most highest profile fiduciary breach cases involving retirement plan fiduciaries. And we've worked on about 70 cases since then. And what we've learned in the courtroom from plaintiff attorneys and what plaintiff attorneys allege and what courts decide is really what we have modeled all of our deliverables and how we work with clients, because we want to make sure that you don't fall prey to those same mistakes that those plan sponsors, those other plan sponsors have. In 2014, we were recognized as one of the best plan advisor teams in the country, and so we were thrilled to win that. And most recently in 2020, we expanded our geographical footprint by adding an office in California that is more focused on plan compliance. On the next page, we've highlighted our client list and highlighted some of our maybe more notable names on the top. City of Ann Arbor, City and County of Denver, City of Scottsdale, City of Las Vegas, City of Kansas City, Cherokee Nation here in Oklahoma, and some City of Tucson. So we've highlighted many more on this list, and what we're really proud about is that we think that you could ask anyone on this list how we do as a advisor, and you would get great reviews. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Gordon to talk about your second question.
Right, well, one of your questions was around the personnel and the team that's proposed to work with your plan, as well as client to the consultant ratios. So we've provided that information on this page, and we look to maintain a client to consultant ratio of 18:1. We want a very high touch from the relationship team, working very, very closely with you, visiting with you on a very regular basis. And we look also to maintain a client to employee ratio of 6:1. Again, lots of back office work from us. So many of the analysts, operations group working in the background, work on your plan, do a lot for your plan, but aren't necessarily focusing. So we want to really keep that ratio quite low. The proposed team is noted on this page. Wendy has spoken. I'm next on that page and would be the primary contact for you should we be selected. Also part of the team would be Kylie Soto. She could not make it today, but she would be one of the consultants assigned to the plan, as well as Brett Minnick and Paul Nicario. We really work in a plan structure because we have many different types of investments within plans. And as fiduciaries, you're tasked with dealing with a lot of different aspects, a lot of facets of those plans. So within that team, we have investment experts, we have internal revenue code experts, not the greatest topic, but an important part of managing retirement plans. We have record keeper experts, those that have spent many years with record keepers, understand the inner workings, understand really the pricing and the structure that they work with. And then we also have participant education experts, people that really understand the programs that your record keepers would be putting in front of your participants. A couple questions that I'm going to deal with and ultimately deal with number 4 first, so we reversed your order a little bit, not quite following your agenda exactly, but you asked about how would we move to your firm? What's the expected and proposed timelines and milestones? And on the following page, we really lay out sort of the first year information here, and we would say it's pretty accelerated in many cases, but we're doing the heavy lifting here. We're here to help you, to assist you, and do the work for you. That's an important part of our role, and we really believe in feeling highly engaged and doing this for you. So as we take a look at that timeline, we're typically going to start out with fiduciary education and ensuring you're understanding those fiduciary responsibilities that you've taken on, ensuring that your governance structure is sound and everything is in place from a document standpoint that needs to be. From then, we really take a look at the plan, sort of your investment menu, the education program that's in place, ensuring from a fee standpoint that the fees you're paying are reasonable. That is one of your fiduciary responsibilities, is taking a hard look at those fees. Ultimately, as we continue on, we're going to take a step back and we want to take a look at setting plan goals. We really believe that plans need to do that. And it's such on a very broad level, ensuring that your plan ultimately is quite healthy. It's here for the participants. It's here to help them reach a successful retirement. We want to ensure that they're using it properly, that your record keeper is providing the right kind of services. So we love to sit down for many times a day-long session and get into strategic planning, really setting out goals for the plan for the long term. From there, we'll be building out our regular reporting and ultimately would expect at some point in time, just to ensure that pricing is appropriate with those record keepers, we would put you into a request for proposal process to take a look at those record keepers, their services, and then their pricings. And then really on an ongoing basis, we will continue to focus in on governance and education. So on a regular basis inside our quarterly reports, we're going to provide both fiduciary and investment education. We're going to assess and evaluate those record keepers on an ongoing basis. We're going to regularly in that quarterly report put fee analysis into that to ensure that on an ongoing basis you're ultimately in the appropriate structure. It's important to stay on top of that on a very regular basis. It's something where you constantly have to be looking at that particular process. And then also that quarterly monitoring, a quarterly meeting, important piece to look at those investments on a regular basis, look at that performance structure, and then ultimately provide you sort of what we call a topics and trends. So every quarter, we'll be looking at some aspect of the retirement industry, be it legislative or regulatory updates that can happen on a regular basis. Certainly, Secure 2.0 Act is at the forefront of our industry right now, and even just some current changes this past Friday within Secure 2.0. Important to always keep you updated on that particular front. So we will, again, include that in every single quarterly report. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Brett to continue a little bit on that question.
Thank you, Gordon. Regarding investments, I do want to be cognizant of time. So really, we want to highlight two key themes throughout the next couple of slides. Number one, observations that we had regarding the current investment offerings within the plan. And then number two, opportunities to actually reduce fees within those investments. What you're seeing on the page here is an overview of the current investments offered within the Mission Square plan. And what you'll see, just a few observations that we had. Number one, at the very top of this page, in the blue shaded area, we've got the multi-asset portfolios. Generally speaking, those are target date funds or risk-based model portfolios, often serve as the qualified default investment option within the plan. Generally speaking, we see participants are more engaged if there is only one type of portfolio being offered there, either the target date funds or the risk-based model portfolios. So generally speaking, if we were lucky enough to work with you all, we would look to consolidate that into one specific suite. And then beneath that, you'll also notice some of what we'll call the core investment offerings. So this includes domestic equities, international equities, fixed income, and then capital preservation investment options. You'll see in the coming pages our approach and philosophy to investment menu construction is to streamline and optimize where possible. Oftentimes, if there are too many choices available to participants, there's a bit of paralysis by analysis and actually inaction that has taken place within participant accounts. You'll notice very, very similar observations within the nationwide investment menu. One thing to note within here is that there is a large usage of proprietary investment options. So those items that begin with NW or nationwide are all proprietary wrapped investment products. That's not to say that those investments do not stand on their own merits from a performance standpoint. However, from a fiduciary perspective, we would want to be very, very cognizant of utilizing those and offering those to participants. What you'll notice here is an illustration of that streamlined investment menu. In many instances, like I referenced before, we really do look to simplify where possible while also offering participants a diversified investment menu of best-in-class strategists or managers. The second piece was fees. And what we noticed throughout the investment menu is that there is significant opportunity to reduce these investment manager costs for both the 457 and the 401A. At the very top of the page, you'll notice that this is the nationwide assets. So we did want to separate out the nationwide and Mission Square assets because the investment management cost structure is just a little bit different. So what you'll notice there is we used a general breakdown of asset allocation that we see within defined contribution plans. So approximately 1/3 of the assets within equity funds, approximately 10 to 15% within fixed income and capital preservation investment products, and then the remainder, about 60% or so, within the target date fund or model portfolios. What we found is that on average, those assets at Nationwide have an investment expense of 76 basis points or 0.76%. We believe using those same allocations to those asset classes, that investment expense could be reduced significantly down to, and this is on the right-hand side, 0.16%. And that equates to approximately $1.7 million in annual savings. Obviously, that number compounded over a longer period of time could be far more significant. Very similar story on the bottom here. We see the Mission Square assets, a average expense ratio of 0.66%. We do believe that could be reduced as well. And ultimately, if there's one very important figure to take from this conversation, it's that number at the very bottom, potential annual savings of approximately $2.7 million, we believe, by making some slight adjustments to the investments offered to participants. Before we share some of our final remarks, I just want to speak to our experience in working with both Mission Square and Nationwide. We have conducted over 125 vendor searches, so RFPs, over the last 5 years, with not all of those resulting in a complete change in the record-keeping provider. What's important too, our experience specifically with these two providers, you'll see that second bullet down. We currently have approximately $1.5 billion in relationship assets with Mission Square and about $3.6 billion with Nationwide. So all of this is to say we are not only very, very well versed with the current structure of the plans offered within the city, but also the two primary service providers that you all have engaged with. With that, I'm going to hand it back over to Wendy.
Great. Are we okay on time? How much time do we have? I just have one or two closing comments, if that's okay. Okay, no problem. I understand your time constraints. The last part of that question was about how would we develop an investment policy statement, and we would develop it based on our process to make sure that, again, we're thinking about these court cases are always in the back of our minds. How do we want to document your investment decisions to make sure you don't get into trouble, that you don't fall into the same traps as other plans have? And it really is largely about investment policy statements. So we want to make sure that they're thorough and solid, but not overly painting you into a corner as a group. So that is something that we spend a lot of time in drafting, and we take over that responsibility to make sure that it's a great document for your committee. Then our fee, we quoted a fee of $42,500. And then annual increases starting in year 2 based just on inflation. So that is our fee. We also put our fee dollars to where our money where our mouth is by saying, well, if we don't meet any of the promises we make you, we will make a payment back to you or reduce the amount of our fee if we don't execute on what we've promised. So we think that's an important distinction as well. So why Innovest? I think we hopefully have demonstrated today that we can do two things really, really well. We can improve your retirement plan readiness of your participants and protect you as a committee better than anyone else can. And we do it all with uncommon service. And the reason why I can state so unequivocally that we can execute on that is because we're an employee-owned firm. Partners serve clients. We always ask our clients, how can we get better? And I'm not sure if you're familiar with a Net Promoter Score concept, but essentially the range is -100 to +100, and you ask someone how likely are they to recommend us to their friends or family. And our score is 81. The industry average is 44. And so we constantly are reflective on these scores, and we ask always how we can get better. So with that, that's all our presentation for today. Do you have any questions for us?
Does the board have any questions? I think we did need one item of clarification on the fee structure. It seemed that your response didn't indicate the initial contract period amount.
Okay.
And so that is something that we need clarified in order to make that determination.
Okay. Yeah, so it would be, and we could put a cap on the CPI if that's something that you needed. So, but the first year, so we typically contract for however long, but the fee, the $42,500, is for a 1-year period. So let's say we started on September 1st, it would be September 1st to September 1st for the 42.5, and then we would have an inflation adjustment, which we would be willing to cap. Just in this, we would have never thought we'd have to cap inflation, but we do now. So we'd be happy to do that.
Perfect. Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We appreciate the opportunity.
And I know we have another meeting waiting for this room, so we'll move quickly to item 4, comments from board staff and any citizens. I did have 2 comments for the group today. One, I wanted to remind everyone our next meeting is actually happening rather quickly. It's going to be the 18th of next month at 10 a.m. We're going to move forward with our contract recommendation, as well as have our 457 vendors come and give us some information as well. And then the last piece of business that I have today is this will be my last public meeting here with Oklahoma City. I have accepted another position and am moving on. And so I wanted to thank the board for the opportunity to serve with each and every one of you. It's been a short but wonderful experience, and I've really appreciated being able to serve all of our members, employees, past and present, and their families. So thank you for that opportunity. And last, I just wanted to say that my position on this board is by position with the city. And so what that means is our vice chair, Matt Bongs, will serve in the interim until my successor is named, and then they will take this seat. So.
We wish you all the best. It's been an incredible pleasure working with you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, and with that, we're adjourned.